Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the place, the home, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Your most authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, meet the person of your dreams, make billions of dollars. We continue to work on those last two. Can't quite guarantee those yet. Getting close. But the rest of it we feel good about. And the reason I feel good about coming back with another episode is primarily because I get to bring on people who walk the walk of authenticity. Today is absolutely no exception. I get to bring on my second Louisville, Kentucky guest so far. The only competition will be who's better, but I feel really, and that first one was good. So I'm very excited that I get to bring my second from the hallowed halls of Louisville, Kentucky, Dr. David Yerkes. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into this.
Me too. And thank you for your time. By the way, folks, if you're a fan of Jay Duran and if you've listened to my podcast, then you know because Jay has been on a number of times on my show. And I am doubly fortunate because I've been on Jay's show a number of times too. This is how I encountered David Yerkes. And so I'm really excited because I trust Jay implicitly. He's more than a friend of the show. He's one of my very favorite people. And Jay always steers me in the right direction. So, David, I put no undue pressure on you in any way. But I'm always excited when there is a link between Jay and I. So, David, welcome aboard, man.
Thank you, John. Yes, it's of course Jay made the connection with us, and it's always great whenever Jay introduces me to somebody because I always know it's going to be awesome. So I appreciate that connection, and it's been great to know you for the short time that we've known each other, and I'm excited to do this show today.
I love it. And we got the chance, folks, like I said, David and I literally had a conversation. David was in the car. We had a chance to talk for a little while. We had the chance to talk about a number of things. I get excited. So David happens to be a number of things, but primarily all in the health-related field. So the managing partner of Lion Oaks Healthcare Consulting, family medicine physician, flight surgeon. You're the first, by the way, on this show, not ever. And military veteran, U.S. Army Reserve officer. And so a lot of cool things that I think about in terms of that. So I'm curious right off the bat, what drew you to your practice? Not what drew you to medicine, what drew you to your current practice?
The longevity and performance medicine.
Correct.
It's a little bit of a long story.
That's okay. Walk me back.
So I've always been interested in health. That's why I became a doctor.
Yep.
And you go through, I was doing fitness and reading fitness literature and health literature when I was a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was good at science and math and some of those things. So I didn't know any doctors. I grew up in a blue collar family. And so just kind of put one foot in front of the other, decided to try to go to medical school and got in. And then when you get into medicine, you find out that you're kind of putting out fires more so than you are promoting health. And
Right.
Every doctor knows, and every doctor tries to promote health and do preventive medicine and everything like that. But there's so much illness now that you kind of just are constantly putting out these fires. And when I finished residency, I went into hospital medicine, which is even more obviously more acute.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly treating people that are acutely ill, very ill, on the brink of death. And you start seeing some of the very same things over and over again. And a lot of this is the end result of chronic illness, which is largely preventable.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had, I got sick of seeing families suffering and patients suffering and people losing their family members too early. And then, people coming in with other things that are maybe not, maybe they didn't kill them, maybe they had a stroke and it caused significant strain. And we talked about this the other day. Maybe
Yep.
that caused significant strain on the
Yep.
family.
In a
So after
million different
years
ways.
and years of seeing this,
Hmm.
um, I just finally I had a moment one night where a young man in his 40s had a massive stroke, and his wife
Hmm.
is out there, at the nurse's station, audibly like crying and almost screaming
Right.
because she's in shock and she's
Hmm.
just doesn't she's scared. And I just thought this particular case was most likely preventable with,
Hmm. Mm.
good lifestyle habits
Right.
and preventive medicine. And I just thought, I've got to do something. I've got to figure out a way to keep this, to help people keep this from happening. And so, not too much later, I sat down. My wife and I took a little break, and I was on vacation, and I sat down and started doing an outline. I didn't know what it was for. I didn't know if it was going to be a book or what, but I
Hmm.
just started putting down my thoughts, and eventually that kind of led to deciding to try to create a video course and a coaching program
Hmm.
and then, I started really researching, because one of my questions was, and we've talked about this,
Right.
what
Hmm.
is it going to take to get people to change their behavior before this happens? And how do you change that behavior? How do you get people to change their
Hmm.
behavior? And then what other things? And I'm a biochemistry nerd, so I got involved in looking at just different cellular health pathways in
Hmm.
biochemistry. I took kind of went back to my roots there. And so I kind of developed a program from scratch through years of basically research. And of course, going through COVID, there was busy times. I had a deployment during this time. And
Hmm.
so I've kind of progressively just built on this during, whatever time I could. We've had since that moment that I had in the hospital. I was a father at the time, and I had a 2-year-old son, and so since then we've had two other children, and so that was important to me too, because I started doing the math a little bit, and I was 35 when I had our first, and I was 40 when we had our last one, and I started thinking, okay, I want to be active. I want to be healthy. I don't want to be sick in the hospital. I don't want to be debilitated when my children are young adults and we could be traveling together and doing things fun together. I want to see my grandchildren. So, so all of that kind of tied in together because I had a personal, interest in it. And then also I wanted to help people have
Hmm.
those same possibilities in their life.
David, I think
So
that, oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, you're great. And what I was going to ask, you just something continues to resonate. Knowing of the suddenness in regards to someone having a stroke and the suddenness of it, that I think about that the events often can feel or seem so random
Mm,
or out of the blue. And I think you just said a minute or two ago when you were talking about that sense of progressive, that people don't just wind up with
mm,
a stroke or with a major, like I said, major heart attack or whatever it is. Although often you're either ignoring signs or you're not getting the outward clues.
mm,
So you had an advantage. You were saying, hey, I was feeling this frustration, and now I've got three young kids. So what I'm going to do, and I'm laying out an outline and all that sort of thing. You, at least it seems, and certainly seems, that you were willing to look future forward, that you were willing to do that. And so often, and I'll speak for me, one of the weird quirks of myself is that crazy sense that you have more time. And I'm saying in quotation marks. Well, obviously I got more time. And and then you see and hear these examples of which, well, apparently, no, you don't. And so you took it upon yourself. You were creating a video course and all that sort of thing. And video course, you said the second was video course and
coaching program,
thank you.
basically, just
Mm-hmm.
an kind of a holistic program to help
Mm-hmm.
people know what's wrong with them, to do some. So we do a lot of um, testing up front
Right.
to help people figure out where are we from a health
Mm-hmm.
standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and then we create a plan from that data, and then we help people with the coaching. We help them implement that plan, and some of that has to do with medical interventions, some that has to do with supplementation, some that has to
Mm-hmm.
do with lifestyle interventions. So we just kind of put all that together and find out what they need based on their goals, and put a plan together for them and help them achieve it.
David, I've heard the word intervention used. I think one was used on me, as a matter of fact. I don't say that sarcastically, part of my history. But when you say intervention, what do you mean?
Well, it could just be, prescribing a medication. It
Oh,
could,
okay.
it could be, giving them lifestyle advice, um, you know, giving specific recommendations for an exercise type of program or nutrition advice. Just I don't I don't do actual medical interventions in my practice.
Hmm.
So that's procedural type stuff
Hmm.
in this practice. There is occasionally that may come up as far as if we discover something that needs a procedural intervention, then we can make those recommendations. But that's not really what I was referring to.
I figured you weren't. I just didn't know other variations of the term, and I appreciate just the clarification. Let me ask you, like backing up a couple of steps, and we talked about the fact of that you've got substantial military experience. You've got not only military experience, but military medical experience. Walk me through what was that like? Like when you signed up? What was that like for you? And then in terms of walk me through how that went in regards to, and I mean, and you're still active, so I don't mean to say it in past tense, only in the sense of that you register. What was that like? What is it like?
Yeah, so it was exciting and intimidating at the same time.
Hmm.
So I don't come from my grandfather was in the military, my great
Hmm.
grandfather was in the military, but my immediate family, not really any military experience. I did grow up close to Fort Knox,
Okay.
so I had a sense,
Hmm.
but it was a little bit intimidating, but it was also really exciting because I wanted to be involved and do something that I felt was meaningful. And so it was, I had thought about joining the military even as a young man. I didn't join until I was in first year residency. So I was already graduated from
Wow.
medical school, was in first
Okay.
year residency
Hmm.
when I joined. And so I was excited about it.
Hmm.
Of course there's some intimidation just because it's something new. It's
Yeah.
like outside of your comfort zone.
Hmm.
But I've always been somebody that's kind of just taking those kind of things on and taking it in stride and take it one step at a time. And so, yeah, it was, initially joining was, I would say most of the emotions were just excitement and eagerness to serve. And
Hmm.
then, as you get over the years, obviously nothing's as exciting as it seems when you first start. But I've had probably the best thing is just the people that I've been able
Hmm.
to meet. I've made some of the most dearest friendships during my time in the military, and I've had the privilege to work with true heroes and
Hmm.
amazing people and see some amazing things. So it's a privilege to be able to do it, um, and I'm grateful.
Were your family excited, nervous, scared? All of the above when you chose to do that?
Yeah, it's probably all of the above. My
Mm.
wife has been very supportive. We'd been married, well, shoot, I think we had just gotten married probably that same year,
And you joined the
and
military.
that I joined the military.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but she comes from a military family.
Got it.
She has three siblings. All of them were in the military
Oh,
of some
wow.
sort.
All right.
So she's pretty supportive, and pretty much as supportive as one could possibly
Right.
be. Um, And of course, my parents were supportive, and my family, all, of course, everybody's a little anxious when you get
Yeah,
deployed, but yeah, no, it was everybody was very supportive.
I love it. How
Yeah.
were you utilized early on in regards to the medical aspect? How were you used? What was it like?
Yeah. So when I first uh, graduated residency, I started as hospital medicine doc,
Hmm.
and it actually went back to my hometown and started practicing hospital medicine. And around a year, just under a year after I finished residency, I left for deployment to Afghanistan. So
Wow.
the way that I was utilized in that sense
Hmm.
was I was in a position it's called a field surgeon, which I wasn't a surgeon. It's
Hmm.
really just kind of like an emergency medicine slash urgent
Hmm.
care slash
Hmm.
clinic doc. I was the all
Right.
around
Right.
doc for that region. And then, we saw everything from just colds to preventive health to anything you might see in an emergency department to major trauma to mass
Mm.
casualty events. We pretty much saw everything. So,
How did you
yeah.
adjust, especially to the more severe, the mass casualty and the trauma and that sort of thing? How did you adjust?
So that was something that I was fortunate to be able to get some training in before I
Oh,
went,
okay.
some
Got
trauma
it.
training and that kind of thing. So, and then when I went over there, we would continually drill for mass casualty events and different trauma type events.
Mhm.
So when things would slow down from a clinic standpoint, we would drill. So when that did
Okay.
happen, everybody knew where they were supposed to be, everybody knew what their job was, and things actually went very smoothly. So that's the best way. That it was still, honestly, it was a little bit out, that again was outside my comfort zone because I went to residency as a family doc, and we didn't do a lot of trauma. We did, we
No.
rotate through all these different
Mhm.
areas, but I wasn't like a trauma trained ER doc. So, but they trained us enough to go over there and be able to handle the kind of things that we knew we would be seeing. And so we were able to handle it and do a good job.
I'm sure you did. One of the things that I think about, it actually scares me, the thought of it. It's the the trauma, like war in general, just still scares me to death. And so based on current events, past events, what have you, it just horrifies me. And I wondered from a medical side how someone is able to put themselves into a mindset. The training I get, and thank God for that. That's really big. But I would also imagine you have to have a certain mentality or a certain mindset, I guess. Might be a better way to say that, that you or other doctors are not getting traumatized too in terms of that. And that's the sort of stuff that I wonder. First off, in addition to the training, how do you get yourself to be able to, no pun intended, to be of service in what I would say the most heightened senses of urgency?
Yeah, I think our medical training kind of
Hmm.
prepares us for that.
Hmm.
You, medical training is long and it's hard, and you see
Hmm.
a lot of different things. And one of the things that you see is death and
Hmm.
those kind of things. And so it does take a toll on your
Hmm.
soul. I think if
Right.
you I'm not the same person I used to be when I was a young man.
Hmm.
It takes a toll on you to
Hmm.
see that much death. But when you're in the moment, you just work. You do your
Hmm.
duty and you do your
Hmm.
job, and you've prepared and you follow your training and you do the best job that you can based on the work that's in front of you, and you
Mm.
take care of the people that are there.
Mm.
And I mean, I never really thought, you don't think about it in that moment. You
Right.
just do the work, and you go to work, and you do the best you can.
I'm curious, when you were talking earlier in regards to the sense of like being exasperated that people are not taking the most basic steps, not even military, just people in general, right? In hardly heightened situations, and you were feeling that level of frustration, which caused you to take action. Do you think that's a part of it?
I think where that comes from is one of the thoughts that I had is I wish I could get people to see what I see every day.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
you mentioned earlier, I was able to look future forward
Yeah,
and see
yeah.
the future. And
Mhm.
I literally have said that to people before, like I can
Mhm.
see your future.
Mhm.
I Not literally, I don't have a crystal ball, but I've seen this so many times. I've
Mhm.
seen the people that are 20 years down the road from this
Mhm.
person that if they don't change what they're doing, I know what's going to happen to them.
Mhm.
And so I actually have that benefit of seeing that every day, day in and day out, whereas the general public doesn't see that. And a
No.
lot of these things are they're insidious. So you don't feel it, you don't see it. It happens slowly and
Oh.
almost like in secret, right?
Yep.
So and
Yep.
then bam,
Mhm.
something bad happens.
Mhm.
And so you might see some signs. You might have high blood pressure. You might get headaches. You might feel bad or have aches and pains, or you might be overweight, and
Mhm.
you can notice that. But it still is. It happens so slowly and so gradually that you don't necessarily see that final outcome that I can see. And if
Mhm.
I thought if I can just get people to see this
Mhm.
and realize to see what I can see every day,
Mhm.
it's a constant reminder to me. Every time I work in the hospital, it's a reminder to me to take care of myself and to continue to advocate for my patients
Mhm.
to do everything that they can. But it's still, I mean, it goes back to culture. We live in a culture and a society and an environment that is not conducive to good health in any way.
Mhm.
So even our own nature is kind of antithetical to good health because we by nature we seek comfort
And
and we seek
ease.
ease,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
so and then you take that and you add the fact that we do have a lot of comfort available to us
Mhm.
nowadays, and we do have ease, and we don't have to move if we don't be intentional about it. If we're
Mhm.
not intentional about moving, we don't have to eat. It's very easy to overconsume calories, which for the first time in history in recent years, calories are cheaper and more abundant for the general sense. I know there are people that have food insecurity, but we're talking about in the general sense, calories are more abundant than they've ever been in the history of man.
Oh,
And
okay, yeah.
I didn't, and again, I wanted to say that disclaimer just so people
Mhm.
wouldn't think that, well, somebody is going to say, well, people have food insecurity. And I get that. But overall, there's these environmental factors that
Mhm.
are surrounding us every day and bombarding us. And a lot of these factors are not conducive to good health. So we have to figure out a way to be intentional about our health. And in order to do that, we have to even recognize that we need to, right? So I think most people do. I
Mhm.
think most in general, and you've talked about your own
Oh.
experience a little bit. I think most people do recognize they could be doing more to improve their health and to be healthier. But again, when you wake up in the morning, the things that are pressing are your job, your
Mhm.
family. The things that are really in our face are not the things nobody's standing by your bed or you're not
Mhm.
having to clock in and unless you are clocking into the gym, there's just all the pressures are not really conducive to promoting health. So you kind of have to
They're
take
all over here.
yes,
And you know what I mean? Out back or back there. Um,
right.
I want to ask you something, and I just because the what you said keeps resonating to me, which I like. You use the term "I know." Now, obviously, I know you're not saying guarantee I know, or 100% efficient I know, but you said I know what's coming. I know what's coming. I'm not asking how do you know. Um, what do you, in your mind, what does I know mean?
So it means that I have seen
Hmm.
the people in the hospital that
Hmm.
are 20 years, 10 years, 5 years down the road
Right.
from this person with the results
Hmm.
of that condition, whatever it may be, you know, with worsening say, kidney failure
Mm-hmm.
because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't control their high blood pressure, or with a stroke or a heart attack, or all of a myriad of different problems that we see in the hospital. And so I know that is going to happen eventually,
Mm-hmm.
or not
See, I know,
100%,
right? No, no, no. But I want you to do this. That's why I'm being very intentional. I'm not challenging you or daring you. I
right?
want you to be very specific
Mhm.
because in my mind, I think untrained, no experience. In my mind, I think of the numbers of all the people that I know. And I think of all the like how many really bad things have happened to the mass majority, and it's still not quite the volume of people. And sometimes I swear to God, I use that as some sort of a crutch for me. Like
Oh,
that's
right.
why I'm
Yes.
asking you to be very specific
Yes.
because not challenging you, I'm challenging me because it's
No.
like, well, wait a minute. Of the myriad let's be exaggerate all my Facebook pals, right? So I got all my Facebook pals, and I don't know, maybe 2% have had something terrible happen to them because I'm not
Right.
paying close attention or whatever. Now, that's what I'm driving at, right?
Yes, that's a
Talking to
very good point. And there's a
you.
couple factors there.
Right?
So one of the factors is, say, some of the people that they may have fatty liver disease and maybe they don't know it, or maybe they know it but you
Hmm.
don't know it. So
Hmm.
fatty liver disease is a precursor to cirrhosis, and it's caused, it's one of the things that alcohol causes is fatty liver, but also you can have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Really?
So yeah, which is one of the leading causes of cirrhosis,
Okay.
which nobody talks about.
No, I've never heard.
Yes. In fact, I just had the last week I worked at the hospital. My first patient was on hospice from
Mm-mm.
fatty liver disease
Mm-hmm.
from cirrhosis from fatty liver disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was older, but he'd been suffering from this for quite some time. You don't always have a giant heart attack or a stroke or
Right.
whatever. Sometimes it's just the quality of life. And when I talk about
Mm-hmm.
longevity,
Mm-hmm.
one of the main goals isn't trying to live to 300. Now, we may get there someday with science. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. The science is not there yet.
Mm.
The science is maybe pushing 100.
Yeah.
And but here's the thing that I look at with longevity, and what we know we can achieve
Mm-hmm.
right now is quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
know I would challenge you to say, I'll
Mm-hmm.
bet you their quality is not as good as it could be if they were doing the right things. And the other challenge is a lot of people think that they've got this big thing built up in their head, like it's too hard to eat right, it's too hard to exercise. It is actually not as hard as you think to make a lot of progress. Now, if you want to be the top of the top, the best of the best, which some people do,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have to put more effort in. But to go from unhealthy to relatively healthy,
Mm-hmm.
there are some pretty easy things you can do, some pretty simple changes you can make, like getting your steps in, like
Mm-hmm.
just controlling your calories, like avoiding the toxins that we know that we're giving to ourselves, like alcohol and tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things are pretty low hanging fruit that can improve your quality of life and your quantity
Right.
pretty remarkably. The other thing is when we're looking at things like acute illnesses, strokes, heart attacks,
Mm-hmm.
atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease would be
That's
strokes and heart
impressive.
attacks. Right.
Not just that you know what it is, but you said it so well. That's
It's a
impressive.
big word that doesn't, it just means
What does it mean?
you've probably heard like the plaque that causes strokes and heart attacks.
Oh,
That's
okay.
atherosclerotic cardiovascular
Mm-hmm.
disease. So that, or ASCVD for short.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the big ones. But the other thing that a lot of people forget about is
Right.
neurodegenerative disease like dementia, Parkinson's.
Mm.
Those are things that happen kind of gradually a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times. And there's more severe cases, and then there's less severe cases. But ultimately, a lot of these people are gradually getting worse and worse quality of life. And it's also very, very difficult on their family. And then there's cancer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these, so all of these and diabetes, or what we call metabolic illness. So a lot of these things are very closely intertwined. So when your risk for one goes up, your risk for a lot of them goes up. And the cool
Oh,
thing is
okay.
what the lifestyle interventions that we do pretty much
Hmm.
reduce your risk for everything. So for instance, exercise, having a very high cardiovascular fitness level or VO2 max
Hmm.
reduces your risk of death by everything substantially. Like twice as much as smoking increases your risk of death.
Oh, oh,
So
okay. Hmm.
yeah, so it's a I mean, we know smoking is like one of the worst things you can do for your health in general.
Yep.
Cancer, all kinds of vascular
Hmm.
disease. A high cardiovascular fitness compared to low cardiovascular fitness
Hmm.
reduces your risk of death by more than double what smoking increases it. So yeah, so it's those things are pretty standard. Now, in order to get a really high cardiovascular fitness, you've got to be pretty intentional about it. You've got to do some special things, but it's not as hard as people think. It is achievable for
Hmm.
anybody if you know what to do and you know how to do it. And so that's one example. Nutrition is another one, and there's a lot of different nutrition is probably the biggest, obviously, but then sleep. I mean, sleep is something that a lot of people don't do well. Ironically, it's something we all know we need, but we don't realize, I think, the impact of sleep on everything, on our
Hmm.
metabolic health, on our cancer risk, on our cardiovascular risk, and even on risk for dementia and neurodegenerative disease. So those are kind of the main ones that I focus on. Now there's other things, but if we could just help people reduce their risk of those things,
Hmm.
the impact would be so substantial. And the quality of your life is going to go up because when you exercise, you get stronger, you get uh, leaner a lot of times. You just have a better quality. You can get around more.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like I've seen people in their 70s have trouble getting up from the chair. In fact, we have people in the hospital that get a UTI that can't walk can't bear their own weight. And I'm not talking people that are morbidly obese. I'm talking about regular people that are just under muscled and weak and what we call frail. Frailty is a big problem that people don't talk about. And you end up in the hospital because you got a UTI, I'm sorry, a urinary tract infection,
Hmm.
and now you can't even walk and bear weight on your own legs. And so that is something we see all the it's so common. It's like one of the most common things we see.
I think one of the things that well, there's a lot there to unpack, and all of it like resonates. And so you taught like terms that scare me, frailty. Um, I'm not going in any sequence, just a couple, and there was 50 that scared me. But the dementia part, the Parkinson's, the like I said, the frailty, the inability to be able to function, where I want to get to it in a second, like we talked about the term inertia. Um, there's almost an arrogance to it when you know that. Like I said, when you talk about what I've seen and what I know, or what I know is coming, and that it is so preventable. Like I said, those terms scare me to death because one of the things that I think about is it's like my mom, God bless her, is over 95 years old, and she's got five healthy kids. Kids. She laughingly said, four of the five of her kids are in their 60s. So it's like, so there's a lot of safe assuming we're all good and we're all going to remain good. And then I'm going to stay good. And then you start to realize how crazy that sounds.
Mm-hmm.
That the numbers don't all work. And that's what I said. My biggest fear is, caring for myself. I don't have a bunch of kids. I don't have any. And currently I'm single, and you don't want to be, like I said, some needy sort. It's kind of hard to attract a guy when you're the needy, frail one.
Mm-hmm.
It's so these are the things that should resonate. And then we talk about inertia. Talk to me a little more about that, just in regards to what it is and how you think you can at least help to unravel that knot. not to
Right.
dump it on you. You're the one that's forward thinking. But in terms of ways to maybe help me, help somebody to unravel that knot.
Sure. Yeah. Of course, I love talking about this stuff, so I'm happy
Mhm.
to unravel that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so when I think about, and I think I mentioned this earlier, I really wanted to understand why people don't do what generally they know they need to do, at least get started somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
It helps to have a professional know how to do
Mhm.
it. And I think one of the reasons people don't do it is because they're intimidated. They don't know where to start.
Mhm.
So it helps to have somebody to help you with that.
Right.
But I think the other thing is it's easier to stay the same than to make a
Mhm.
change, right? I think everybody knows if I went out and went for a run,
Mhm.
it'd be good for me, right?
Yep.
So why don't we do that?
Mhm.
And I think it's this inertia. So inertia, the definition of inertia, like we mentioned
Mhm.
while we were talking earlier,
Yep.
is an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest. And so I kind of think of this psychological inertia of change, this resistance to
Mhm.
change, or this comfort even. I think it's more about comfort, and we're in our comfort zone,
Mhm.
and we have a tendency to not want to get out of our comfort zone or do
Mhm.
anything. But it's not even about not wanting to. It's the ability to really create the intention and create
Mhm.
a plan and then
Mhm.
follow a plan, and do it. And it seems like we have to have some kind of acute event or some kind of scare
Mhm.
in order to really get motivated to change our behavior. And that's just human nature.
Right.
And there's different, psychological words for that. But ultimately, I figured out, well, we've just got to start putting the word out. And we've got this culture right now, and it's nobody's fault. I'm not trying to blame anybody,
Mhm.
but it's just technology and everything. Even food science has evolved in a way that it's really easy to consume a lot of calories, and it's
Yeah.
delicious,
Mhm.
and it's easy to be sedentary, which is
Oh, I
bad.
can just Instacart and Go
Yes,
Puff and whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, and I don't even have to leave my home. It just
exactly.
comes to the chair,
Yes.
you
And
know?
so I think when I talk about inertia, I'm really talking about like this psychological inertia of maybe it's not knowing where to start or not
Mhm.
understanding where to start, and maybe
Mhm.
it's just not having the motivation. And I think a lot of that. So one of the reasons when in my program we start with mindset, we start with teaching people how to have the right mindset. And one of the things I've noticed when people get started, when they are finally motivated to get started, they want it all right now. They want to,
Sure.
and I say, whatever comes fast isn't going to last. So
Okay.
we want to do it
Mhm.
in a way that is sustainable. So basically, we want to create habits and create a lifestyle and create an identity like we were talking about.
Right.
This is what I do.
This is
If
what I'm
you
going to do.
ask, yes, if you ask successful people, whether it's going to the gym or whatever they are in their business, why do you do that particular habit? Why do you do that?
Mhm.
Almost all the time they'll say, well, that's who I am. That's what I do.
That's who I am. That's what I do.
And so how do you replicate that? Well, there's a few ways to do it, but essentially first you have to get started, right? And then you have to create a habit. But building that identity is really important because successful people are not consistent 100% of the time. They have days off, they have off moments,
Right.
right? But what do? They get back on. They continue to go back and get back on track. And a big part of that is because that's what they do. That's who they
Mhm.
are, and that's what they do, and that's what they believe about themselves. So what we believe impacts what we do. So, anyways, in our
Mm.
program, we start with mindset.
Mhm.
We
Right.
really, really want to set that foundation
Mhm.
of having the right mindset and understanding why what we're going to do in the future is important. And then the second thing we do is we address sleep. Because if you are not getting the right quantity and quality of sleep, and that includes your sleep schedule and all those things,
Mhm.
if you're not getting that right, everything else is going to be significantly more difficult. It changes how your body processes food. It changes your hunger hormones. It changes your motivation to exercise. It changes your mental health. It actually impacts, significantly impacts your mental health. All of those things. And you could get into, REM sleep and all these different things. But so sleep is the second thing we address. So if we can lay that foundation with mindset and sleep and get those things out of the way, the other stuff's pretty simple. We can address that, you know, but it's all about building habits and creating that long-term success formula so that it's not a crash diet. It's anybody can do keto for 90 days and lose a bunch of weight, but then what happens? And we've all seen it, right? We've all done it. It's or whatever. I just brought up
I got
keto
it.
because it's
Or
popular.
right,
Yeah.
just because it's a known entity.
Whatever particular diet you choose,
Right.
right? What I try to do is I try to help people figure out how to live this way for the rest of their life and enjoy it and really truly that becomes who they are. So you don't have to be the weird person at parties and all those things and you can still have incredible health. So
So
that's
I love that, and I want to ask a couple follow-up questions. But first, folks, anybody who's a fan of the show knows that I really lean now more into holistic integrative medicine. Thank God, like before David and I had talked about Greg Schindler, who's been on my show, the longevity CEO, Dr. Seema Bani, who I know from just outside of Philadelphia, PA, that's a big part of integrative holistic medicine. And so I'm a big believer in that sort of dig deeper approach. Do you still get pushback in regards to this because it's not symptom related
hmm.
medicine? Do you still get pushback or are more people buying in at this point? Meaning allowing themselves to create this identity.
I think the population of people are very interested in
Mhm.
this. It's I think most people know that's the solution
Right.
and it's not the solution to everything. It
Hmm.
isn't. There are thank God for modern medicine that can treat things that are not lifestyle related. Okay.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, right. As opposed to instead of surgery. No,
Yes,
that it's like in some cases, surgery is the answer. Yeah.
surgery or even medications.
Yep.
There are things. I was talking to our pulmonologist the other day. There's
Hmm.
somebody that came in with a very significantly impactful but very specific genetic mutation that was causing, I think it was a type of cancer that they had, and it's a very specific genetic mutation, and there's
Hmm.
a very expensive medication that can actually treat that. So thank goodness for modern medicine
Right.
that can take care of those things.
Hmm.
However, the things that are lifestyle related, um, you know, people are very receptive to it.
Hmm.
And occasionally I've had people make comments, well, oh, I don't want to, I'd rather eat pizza and cheesecake and just die happy or whatever. But I haven't seen that. I've seen a lot of suffering
Yeah, the
from,
die happy part.
yeah,
The part
it's
that may
not,
not be quite
that might
as
be a fallacy. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right. Sorry for laughing, but yeah.
So yeah.
A
And so
jolly
for
old dying person doesn't seem to come up and play all that often.
exactly,
Right.
yeah. But I mean, I get it. I
Hmm.
try to be gracious with people,
Hmm.
and I really am interested in just helping helping people
Hmm.
to live the best life that they can
Hmm.
live. And I would say for the most part, I haven't had any negative. Most people are very curious and
Hmm.
interested. They may not jump on board right away
Hmm.
because everybody's got their own life and they've got their own pressures and they've got busyness and kids and jobs and all those
Hmm.
things. So, uh, yeah, I think I haven't really seen much pushback at all. I think the
Good.
the culture right now is extremely open
Hmm.
to and very interested in alternative. I guess, I mean, this isn't really that alternative.
That's a great choice of words. And I love that you said that because that's how it was treated. I
Mhm,
have been like utilizing testosterone replacement therapy
mhm,
for over a decade,
Yeah.
but not 30 years, but I mean, but over a decade. And I can remember how antiquated that sounded to my primary care physician when that first came into place. I didn't have the conversation with him.
Hmm.
I had the conversation with an integrative medicine doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, during whether it's 12 years or it's more than 10, but I can't remember. And then eventually, what the primary doctor would say, well, then have that doctor send me the numbers, which they wouldn't even want the blood work, let alone, right? So now there was like a little bit of harmony, and it feels as if there's much more harmony in the communications, and you don't have this polarized sort of I'm here, and the fake doctor. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's such a relief because I'm a massive believer in this. Let me ask you. I had touched on it before, and I just wanted to come back to there's like a few more things, and one of them is this. I do want to address uh, medicine with active military people in the present tense, not in the past. But before I do, I just literally wanted to ask. You brought up a couple of steps in addition to communicating with you. What would be if you were looking to better navigate your sleep?
Mm.
What would be one thing that somebody could start with to build their identity that I sleep better or I am a person that cares about sleep? What's one thing that
One
they
thing.
could do? One just, and not the number one thing, just
Yeah.
one thing.
One thing would be, I'm trying to figure out how to say this the best way.
Say it any way you want.
Getting to bed on time, having the discipline to
Hmm.
get in bed without a device in your hand
Hmm.
in a reasonable amount of time
Hmm.
to actually fall asleep and get the right amount of sleep. And then having the proper sleep environment. It should be cool enough, it should be quiet, it should be
Hmm.
dark, and it should be the only place, the only thing you should do is sleep.
Okay.
Basically, the bed is for sleep and sex, and that's it.
Hmm.
Not
Got it.
television.
Hmm.
Probably that's probably what I would say. Get the television out of the bedroom. That's the number one
There you
thing.
go. There you go. That okay. Mhm. Right.
Get the
Right.
television out of the bedroom,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
will pay huge health dividends for you. And so yeah, I go through, there's so many different little things that affect our sleep
Hmm.
more than you would even realize. Um,
I'm
and
terrible with sleep, right? I mean, and I mean it. That's why I
yes,
I wanted like I've used a CPAP machine and then I get frustrated and then I don't, which then has compound negative effects. So then and so I'm fascinated. It's not the word I want. It has become an imperative now,
mm,
um, in the sense that I have no idea that there's times that I go through okay cycles and then I go through horrifically bad cycles. And during those really bad sleep cycles or when I couldn't even tell you how tired I was. You know what I
yes,
mean?
and I
So
can't
much so that
imagine
I don't even know.
functioning that way. And in
Hmm.
the impact of sleep on our cognitive performance
Hmm.
is literally like being drunk.
Mm.
When I say sleep,
Hmm.
sleep deprivation or
Yeah.
poor
Yeah.
sleep, it's like being drunk.
Hmm.
And so many people are going through life like this every
Hmm.
day. And it's fascinating to me. I've been I've operated under sleep deprivation more times than I would care
I
to.
guess so, right? Yeah.
Yes. And but the science is just absolutely clear. Sleep is the foundation of health
Hmm.
and cognitive performance and physical performance even. In
Hmm.
fact, there's a really, really cool study I got to tell
Yeah.
you about.
Tell me.
So they did a study in Stanford and they looked at, and I should have reviewed this before I came on because I'm
Hmm.
going to be a little foggy on the details, but it was a sleep extension study. So they just
Hmm.
asked the athletes to sleep
Hmm.
an extra hour a night or something like
Hmm.
that. And this is a pretty well-known study. I probably need to go back and read it again to get the
Yeah.
details,
Cool.
but
Good.
they measured their
Hmm.
athletic performance, free throw shooting,
Hmm.
jump shot, three
Hmm.
point shots, sprint times, those kind of things. And the improvement in performance over the year compared to the previous year shouldn't be possible. People like went up a percentage, like a 10% on free throw shooting or something like that. It was so dramatic. It was undeniable. The performance on just those small, fine, because if you think about a basketball shot,
Mm-hmm.
it's touch. It's very there's I mean, you could shoot the same, and just that fine touch is different. So if you can have that kind of difference just from a very rudimentary intervention, which is basically saying, hey, try to sleep an extra hour or two a night,
Right.
um, that it's just one example of the
Mm-hmm.
power of sleep. And a lot of these guys were probably, I mean, they're college kids, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably getting a little sleep deprived. They're probably not
Mm-hmm.
getting to bed on time. They're probably drinking some alcohol and those
Yeah.
kind of things. So I don't know how much they controlled for, but yeah, that's one study
Mm-hmm.
that just showed the profound effects on physical performance in an athlete. But the cognitive benefits are also very, very well described in the literature. And I think a lot of people are underperforming so much and so often they don't even realize it. That's just they're normal. And if you really got it turned around, I don't know how many people I've had tell me I feel like a new person
Mm-hmm.
just from fixing that one thing. Like that's where we start. And then they're already, you know, like it's revolutionary. So yeah,
So
that
when you brought up the expression, that's who I am and that's what I do, I wonder that if for those that are not helping themselves in regards to sleep, I wonder if they even know who they are,
oh
what they do. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's the part that's terrifying and exciting all at once, meaning because it is
Mhm.
fixable, it's addressable and fixable.
There's another thing that I think is happening a lot, and it's called
Mhm.
revenge sleep delay, or there's a few different words for it. But basically, it's say you have a job, say you're working a 12-hour job,
Yeah.
and you basically have very little control over your uh, over your own autonomy, and or maybe you're an entrepreneur, and all
And
you've
you're
done,
just always on.
you're always on,
Hmm.
and then you go to bed, and or it's time to go to bed.
Hmm.
And instead of going to bed and having the discipline to go to bed, you have this urge to just do something that doesn't matter. Just watch Netflix or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And Netflix is terrible because it has this auto,
Oh, just next
next
episode just
next
shows up
episode and four
and off
hours
you
goes
go.
by. Yeah. And it's 3 a.m. But yeah, I think that's happening a lot to people.
Mhm.
And they just feel this need to do something else that is
Mhm.
not cognitively demanding, that is not, somebody telling them what to do, that somebody's not looking over their shoulder, or
Mhm.
that they're not having to be responsible for somebody or something. And what ends up suffering is the only thing that we have some control over is our sleep, right? Those 8 hours. And
Mhm.
if we bump into that, we can still get up. We have to get up in the morning and go to work,
Mhm.
right? So those that I think that's happening a lot too to people. And it's if you again, awareness is the first step. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
one of the things that we do is just try to make people aware that these
Mhm.
things are happening and that you're not a bad person. It's happening to other people. Other people are
Mhm.
doing it, and it's something that can be overcome. It takes a little bit of discipline. It does. When you've had a hard day and you've just had just constant, you haven't had any time to yourself, to just end that day like that and just go to bed and
Mhm.
know that the next day is coming the same way. That takes a little bit of self-control and discipline and foresight and forward thinking, or what did you call it? Looking forward,
Future forward
future forward.
thinking. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So, and understanding the benefits of doing that, I
Mhm.
think is actually really important too, because if you understand the benefits and the risks of not doing it, it helps people change their behavior, right? If they think, oh, it doesn't really matter, I'll just feel tired tomorrow. If
Mhm.
that's the worst that can happen is I just don't feel good, it might be worth it,
Mhm.
right? But if I'm increasing my risk of dementia and stroke, and I'm not going to lose that weight I was trying to lose, and
Mhm.
all these and diabetes, and oh, by the way, um, my actual performance the next day and my ability to get my work done on time is going to suffer. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to be on your game.
All the
And
time.
yes.
All
And
the
if you're not
time.
getting your sleep, you're not going to be on your game.
I
So
think I love, it's intimidating, but it's worth it. And I think about the sense that, like, for me, this whole show is centered upon authenticity, and being able to express yourself completely and authentically. And one of the reasons it's important for me to speak with you and experts like you is because it's hard to be authentic if you're carrying around either physical weight or mental stress. I've done all of those things in my life, so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Just that sense of realization, you really want to be authentic, well, then you might as well be all of you. You know what I mean? And so that's why it's really important for me to have conversations with people that are trying to unravel the knot. So I'll ask you this: the best place to find you right now. You talk about the course, you've talked about the coaching. We go to your website, which the link will be in your website. I'm sorry. Hello, that's tired. The link will be in the bio, and we will make 100% certain that that's there. In addition to your website, where's the best place to find you?
I would say, so my website, obviously, drdavidyerkes.com. And
Yep.
then I'm on most of the social platforms. You can message me on LinkedIn or Instagram, Twitter, Threads, whatever,
You got all
Facebook,
of them, right?
whatever,
There you go.
whichever one you prefer. I'm on all of them. I'm not super active. I'm not as active as my business coach would like me to be. But it's something has to suffer. So
Well, if something has to suffer, maybe it's your social media as
exactly, yeah,
opposed to your medical training
right.
and your expertise. David
Yeah,
Yerkes, thank you so much for showing up for me, man. I really appreciate you. And I'll ask you this in advance. Will you come back?
absolutely. Of course,
That's
I'd love
awesome.
to. Yeah,
Way more
we
to
still
follow.
have so much more to talk about. I'd
I
love to.
know, and I'm excited to do that. But then it goes back to mostly folks and anyone watching, and this also pertains to me, which is that sense of you just doing a couple of things.
Mhm.
I want to come back to when you talked about next time, when you said you don't have to do all that much to put yourself in a way better health position. That I'd like to be as the focus for next time as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you for showing up, man. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, John.
Hey, and folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Your Message Received. Keep watching, listening, liking, sharing, and we'll keep dropping content through your front door. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.